Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for tonight's meeting about the Mcdowell Road Revitalization Project. The limitation for this project is along Mcdowell Road between 7th Street and the State Route 51, Piestoa Parkway. My name is Heather Murphy, and I'll be your host and moderator tonight. We do offer this meeting audio in Spanish, and I'd like to introduce Albert Granillo to explain how to get the Spanish language listen line. Albert?
Annie, do you mind going to the next slide? Si usted desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor marque el 602-534-1000 y luego introduzca el número de la reunión, que es el 57271, y luego presione el símbolo de número. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Albert. I will go to the Spanish language line. If you have any questions, I'll monitor the chat for messages from you. Before we begin, I'd like to share some tips for this WebEx meeting. Your screen should look something like what you see right now. To access the interactive features on WebEx, you'll click on the little speech bubble at the bottom where the angled yellow arrow is pointing. We'll be capturing all your questions and comments for the project team to evaluate later. Because we have more than 20 pre-submitted questions and more than 40 who pre-registered to speak. Let me now introduce tonight's panel. Starting from the top, please introduce yourself and your relationship to the project in the order your names appear on screen.
Good evening, I'm Keeney Knudsen. I'm the Director for the Street Transportation Department for the City of Phoenix. Our department is responsible for the project we're talking about this evening.
Good evening and welcome everybody. My name is Mark Locke. I'm the Deputy Director for our Street Transportation Department over our Design and Construction Management Group, and my team will be presenting tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Leticia Vargas. I'm a Special Projects Administrator in the Design Construction Management Division, and my team is managing this project.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carl Langford. I'm a Traffic Operations Engineering Supervisor and the Traffic Engineer for this project.
Good evening, everybody. I am Brandy Ruark. I'm a Civil Engineer 2 for Streets and also the Project Manager for this project. And I will be presenting the project, including project opportunities and potential updates for consideration tonight.
Good evening, I'm Justin Feek. I'm the Consultant Project Manager working with the Street Transportation Department to deliver this project.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Keeney, would you like to make some opening remarks?
Certainly, thank you, Heather. Well, the first thing I wanted to just mention is thanking everybody for their participation this evening. We try to make sure that we have all manner of engagement for our projects to make sure we have an opportunity to be able to connect with the community, hear from you, share with you what we're working on, and be able to use your input to be able to influence what we're doing on a particular project. Now, I know with the project we're talking about this evening, that there is a very much an active and engaged community who are interested in this project. And I do want to mention this is the first of potential 3 meetings that we're going to have over the next 8 to 12 months as we go through this pre-design effort that we're working on. I would mention, whether it's in this meeting or outside of this meeting, we welcome public input on this project at any point along the way. We have a project webpage as well that we'll keep updated through the process to be able to, so you can connect with the project no matter when you want to hear about it or learn more about the project. And as earlier this afternoon, about 1 p.m. this afternoon, I want to mention that we have about 140 people registered to attend, to be participating this evening. Out of those, we have about 43 people who have requested to speak tonight, and many others have submitted questions. So even if this were a 3-hour meeting, we still wouldn't probably get through all of the comments that people want to get to. So we're going to do our best to manage the meeting and be able to switch back and forth between people who have submitted questions or requested to speak, and any questions we might see otherwise. So we're going to try not to repeat the same thing over again for different questions, but we do appreciate your interest. And if for some reason we don't get to your comment or question this evening, you can still submit it through our project webpage and through the methods that Heather's going to outline for you later as well. You know, our goal on here is to plan a project that's supported by the community. So we want to hear from you. We're just at the beginning stages of this planning effort. And that's going to end up with about a 30% design, conceptually speaking. And what goes where and the particulars of design will happen later in the design phase. And then we'll go to the construction phase. I do think it's important to note that the funding we have right now is for this pre-design effort. We don't have funding identified yet for design or construction of any improvements that might be identified out of this process. So I just wanted to kind of lay the groundwork a little bit, but we do want to hear from you. So I'm going to turn it over to my team, to Brandy, to take you through the presentation this evening.
Thank you everyone for being here tonight and for taking part in the meeting. I'm really excited for the opportunity to present this great project to the community and to hear from you on what you envision for this segment of Mcdowell between 7th Street and State Route 51. On the map, the study corridor is defined by the yellow line, and the study area is the shaded blue area around it. The study area is there to look at existing conditions to inform recommendations for Mcdowell Road, but we're not making changes to this blue area. Tonight, we're talking about the possibilities on Mcdowell Road. We'll be getting into more detailed possibilities as we go through the presentation. Mcdowell Road has importance to both the local community and is also significant to the region. This helped us win a grant from Maricopa Association of Governments to fund the project through the study and planning phase. Mcdowell has importance to the local community due to its history and vibrant nature, in addition to a large commercial network of diverse and active local businesses. Mcdowell also provides access to a major hospital and serves as an incident management route in close vicinity to I-10 and serves as an exit entrance to State Route 51. An incident management route is included in emergency plans when nearby freeways State Route 51 and I-10 are restricted or closed. We'll also be looking at improving pedestrian connections to the bus line along Mcdowell Road that connect to regional transit. We will also be looking at what the community desires to foster a sense of place. We're here to seek out what the community envisions to foster this sense of place, with a primary focus on pedestrian safety. The project is about connecting people with enjoyable walking infrastructure while promoting comfort and safety and enhancing access to transit. New and enhanced corridor branding will be considered as part of this project. Before we dive into the bulk of the presentation, let's cover what it means for this to be a pre-designed project. It means that at each step of the way, we'll be collaborating with the community to develop project goals, develop concepts, and finalize alternative options for further design and construction potential funding. We are all gathered here today to initiate this pre-design process that starts with project goal development. Concepts are created through understanding project priorities and challenges. After that, alternative options are developed from these concepts, and through community outreach and engineering judgment, an alternative is chosen that works best for the community. Right now, we are solidifying goals and trying to connect people to Mcdowell Road safely by enhancing walkability and connectivity while creating a sense of place. Once the first round of community outreach efforts has been completed, the project team will identify viable alternatives for further future review by key stakeholders. The first round of stakeholder outreach meetings The first round includes stakeholder outreach meetings, this public meeting, and initial survey. The survey can be found on the project website that will be shared later in this presentation. The survey and stakeholder outreach will enable us to learn about what the priorities are for the community and figure how to best serve the community, how we want to connect, and what the priorities are. The outreach effort is an opportunity for us to engage thoroughly with everyone in the project area. This is the first public meeting for this project, but it is not our first contact with diverse stakeholder groups. We've been doing stakeholder outreach. We've also been attending standing community meetings and talking to the community groups about what they would like to see. Tonight will be an opportunity to hear from the community. The survey that's launching tonight will be an opportunity to gain input from the community, and that input that you share about your priorities will help us develop design concepts for further assessment. I've also met with specific groups to get the word out about the project. These groups include Coronado Neighborhood Organization, Garfield Organization, Greater Green Gables Neighborhood Association, Miracle Mall Merchants Association, and Phoenix Revitalization Corporation's Resident Leadership Council. The city has also been working with our great team of consultants, designers, and planners to analyze the existing area and figure out what are the project opportunities and constraints to understand really what is possible in this area. Mcdowell Road is a 6-lane arterial roadway with banner emergency access that serves as an exit entrance to State Route 51 and also serves as a detour route to the I-10 during emergency situations. The project corridor is served by the Valley Metro local bus route that runs from Estrella Parkway to the 101 in the East Valley, creating beneficial connectivity to the broader region. Furthermore, the project area is currently a part of the West Phoenix High Capacity Transit Study. This evaluation provides potential transit mode recommendations for light rail transit or bus rapid transit. The project area also has multimodal connections as shown on the map in front of you. The multimodal map shows existing bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, including bridges, routes, paths, signalized crosswalks, transit stops routes, hawks, and future planned hawks. It is also really exciting that the Mcdowell Road project area will connect to the Oak Street pedestrian bridge via the 20th Street path. The 20th Street is a quarter-mile east of State Route 51, and the bridge runs over State Route 51, connecting to 20th Street to 20th Place. It's also exciting that there's pedestrian bridges that cross the I-10 at 10th Street, that the 10th Street and the 18th Street alignments, and they're also, close to the project area, which is great. If you want to see more detailed maps regarding existing land use, future land use, and right-of-way boundaries, please visit the project website. So as most of us know, Mcdowell Road has diverse and unique local businesses, historic structures, including ties to historic neighborhoods, and an established Miracle Mall brand seen in the bottom right picture. The area includes an array of ethnic restaurants and markets and is becoming a hub for immigrant and refugee entrepreneurship. Constraints include property lines with parking too close to the roadway and frequent driveways that cut across sidewalks. The first picture shows a driveway whose only use is to access parking that is crowding the street. Constraints also include minimal building setbacks and limited right-of-way, wide road pedestrian crossing distance, high traffic volumes, and driver behavior not compatible with safe biking and walking. These are pictures of project opportunities. Murals and area branding currently exist on Mcdowell, but most of these pictures represent new opportunities to upgrade existing features. Potential improvements include area branding, murals, wayfinding signage, shade, bus shelters, and mid-block crossings. Excitingly enough, there is a hawk scheduled for installation at 18th Street and Mcdowell Road. Kudos to the Pedestrian Safety Program for funding this. And last but not least, we're looking for your input this evening through the survey. Also, after the presentation, there will be an opportunity to provide input and ask questions. These are pictures of potential updates for consideration. These potential updates for new features include structural shade, landscape median islands that preserve access, bike parking, bench seating areas, and pedestrian scale lighting. We are looking for input this evening through the survey. Again, this survey includes an opportunity to list other innovative ideas you may have. As we move into the timeline, I'm going to discuss where we're headed. We are headed toward the second public meeting in winter 2023 to share concept alternatives. And then we'll have the final public meeting to share preferred alternative and preliminary design in spring 2023. By summer 2023, we'll have a complete project report. And then also, last but not least, we are seeking funding for final design and final construction and that will help determine the construction year. Thank you everyone again for being here tonight and taking part in the meeting. The survey we've been talking about throughout the presentation can be found on the project website. And that concludes the presentation. Now Heather will lead the group through the questions and answers portion of the meeting. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Brandy. And that was a quick run through some of the possibilities. And just to clarify, the winter of 2023 would be soon after the first of the year. That's when we intend to come back to you and basically distill down what we learned from you through this process and through the project survey. We do plan to post this meeting to our website, so you and your neighbors, if they happen to miss this meeting, will still be able to provide their vitally important input to us. With that, I'd like to go ahead and dive in because we have so many people signed up to speak. I'm going to call on Lauren Katzman first, and I'm looking for Lauren here to see if I can find Lauren and unmute her. Go ahead, you're unmuted. Please go ahead.
No, I said I had a question. I might have a question, but I don't right now. But thank you.
Perfect.
I appreciate it.
We'll move on.
And I actually
Thank you.
don't see the survey in the website.
My colleague is loading that right now, so it will be there before the meeting is over.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Next, I want to take one of the submitted questions and we'll just alternate back and forth. After the team reviews this question and responds, I'll call on Madeleine Edelman, and I'm looking for Madeleine right now. But before we get to Madeleine, we have a question. How do you expect to make the streets safer without any lane reductions? Some sidewalks abut the roadway and the building setback is such that there isn't much right of way to play with. Team?
Yes, I'd like to defer that question to Carl Langford, our traffic engineering expert.
Yes, thank you for the question. So while this project is not looking directly to reduce any of the lanes, it does have several aspects that including some signal upgrades that will allow for better signal timing, include some trees, some shade, some other things along the street that research shows does help to kind of control and slow traffic down throughout the project. But it does not officially change any of the lane configuration out there.
Thank you, Carl. Next is Madeleine, and let me just get you on here and unmute you. Please go ahead.
Sure. Thanks so much. Thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. That was a good guess on your part. I'm curious if you have any updates on the developments that are currently in the works in the corridor. There are a number of spots on very prominent corners that seem to be under construction, in development. So I'm really wondering what the plans are and how that might fit into this visioning and strategic planning process. And to follow up on the previous question, also interested in things like smart bus pullouts so that traffic is not impeded, but also trying to figure out how to calm traffic in the area so that it becomes much more pedestrian and bike friendly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, I'll go ahead and answer the first part of the question. Really, we're aware of some large-scale development of a 5-story apartment building that is going to be constructed around 17th Street and Mcdowell. But aside from that, I didn't see anything major in the works.
I'll just build on what Brandy was talking about. I think we, just to let you know, in Street Transportation Department, we have a development coordination team that works closely internally with our groups, and especially the group that will be working on this project, but also with our planning and development department and the developers, to be able to see what those developments are and be able to look at how the impacts they will have to the street environment and what we can do to be able to enhance the pedestrian and bicycle perspective and experience for those on McDowell. But that's something we do on all of our developments, not just the ones on McDowell, but we look for ways to be able to mitigate those impacts by the developments and how those developments can better influence our streetscape design.
Thank you, Keeney. Next question was one of the pre-submitted questions. What can you do to decrease speeding and red light running and issues with homelessness? So that's a couple of questions consolidated into one. Thank you, team.
Yes, I will pass this question to Carl Langford, our traffic engineering specialist. Thank you.
So I can take the question, kind of speeding and red light running. So one of the things this project is looking to do is to upgrade some of the signal equipment that is out there and relook at the traffic signals. With that comes newer technologies with the traffic signals that do help us allow us to time the signals better, time it specifically for kind of the speed of the corridor or the speed limits through the area. That does help slightly control some of the traffic. Also, some of the newer technology, it adds extra heads over the lanes, it adds more visibility, and in general, the research shows that that improves red light running and those type of things. I'll pass the homeless question on to somebody else.
I guess I'll take that. I think I would just say from an overarching perspective, we are concerned as a city and what's happening with persons who are experiencing homelessness. And how those activities or encampments or groups move around. That's something we work closely with multiple other departments within the city. It's not just the Street Transportation Department working through this, but the city does have a team of folks that are working on through Phoenix Cares, through Leading with Services, to be able to address some of the things that we're seeing in people experiencing homelessness out on the street, and working to be able to get them to social services or that they can take advantage of, and then work to make sure they're safe and around those areas. But our Street Transportation Department project that we're talking about tonight won't by in of itself necessarily address homelessness, but I want to make sure you understand that there are activities and efforts underway in the city to be able to look at where we all understand this is a growing problem around the city, and we're working diligently to try to address it where it pops up and where we see it to be able to address it and develop countermeasures to it.
Thank you very much, Keeney. Next, I would like to unmute Kirsten Keene and have you go ahead and keep your comments brief because we're going to try and crank through a whole bunch of people tonight. Go ahead, Kirsten, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Certainly, it looks like you guys are considering a lot of the things that I have on my list. I know it's going to be difficult to do some of these things with Mcdowell being the major corridor that it is, but if there's possibility for a median at the crosswalk, just for a little bit more safety, making sure there are universal design features integrated into the stoplights, so making sure there's stuff for those with visual impairments or hearing impairments. Also considering making them, the crosswalks themselves, into artwork. I noticed even today walking or driving by, there's already wider sidewalks with plantings and trees. So just keeping that going so that there's that buffer to the street. Better lighting is going to be critical, bike racks. And then lastly, you know, working with like the Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture to make some of the infrastructure, for instance, like bus stops or street furniture into maybe public art opportunities.
Thank you. We'll definitely take that into consideration. Does anybody on the team want to speak to that?
Yes, I just want to chime in. Those are all great concepts, and yes, we're definitely going to be considering that through our conceptual overview of the project.
Thank you, Brandy. Next, I'd like to take another question from the pre-submitted questions, and after that, I'll unmute Yvette Kuda. The next question is, how will safety be improved for pedestrians and bicyclists at intersections?
I can take that one. So one of the things that whenever we're looking at signals and looking to upgrade the signals is we do take into consideration pedestrians and bicycles and safety. And so any of our modern signals, so as we go through and update it, there are things such as pedestrian push buttons. They're called an APS, an audible push button, that's specifically for, say, those that are slightly visually impaired. There's countdowns with it. We update the timing with it. There's different type of controllers and or detection that detects vehicles better. And so it creates an atmosphere that it can understand more what's going on. And with that, the signal itself becomes, in a sense, smarter to help all the people and all of the modes at the location.
Thank you, Carl. Yvette, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Thanks for taking my question. So similar to others, we're all very concerned about the speed and the amount of traffic that's on Mcdowell. And I realize that some of those renderings are just early ideas. What's really, I think, sorely needed is another traffic light to slow traffic between the 51 and then over to 16th Street. I noticed in your renderings that you had a crosswalk there, which is excellent, but seeing what I see every day, in fact, I take a different route to go onto the 202 to avoid turning left onto Mcdowell. It would be great to see another traffic light at some midpoint in there. And what are your thoughts on that?
I can answer that question. As far as I do know that we've identified at 18th Street specifically a hawk to go in. And again, that's through our Office of Pedestrian Safety has identified that location. As far as the traffic signal, those all take traffic warrants is kind of what we call it. So it's an evaluation to determine, hey, is a traffic signal needed in the location? And a signal, again, is needed not necessarily just to break up traffic throughout, but to allow access to those that need access to it. Not always do more signals necessarily equate to a safer or a better movement of a roadway, depending on spacing. But we'll evaluate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Next question from the pre-submitted questions, and then I will call on Becky Santiago. So first, will there be more options for pedestrians to control traffic? And I think that maybe explain what a hawk is and what it does.
Sure, I can do that. So a hawk is kind of like a pedestrian signal crossing in a sense. So we have several of them throughout town. I'm trying to think of one of the closest ones there. There's one at 7th Avenue and Fillmore. I know there's one closer, I just can't think of it. But a hawk typically has kind of a triangle head, so it's kind of two heads and one below. And what that does is it basically stays blank for traffic, except for when a pedestrian shows up. And so as a pedestrian, they push the button, it then flashes yellow for a while to get drivers' attention, goes to a steady yellow, and then ultimately a steady red for traffic to stop. The pedestrian's allowed to go. Partway through, as the pedestrians either cross the street already or partway across the street, it will start to flash red. And that signifies to drivers that you can go if it is clear. So if the pedestrian has already passed your space, it allows the driver to go. The next driver needs to stop, verify that it's clear for them to go. And what that does is it does allow more access to the pedestrians while maintaining traffic flow through the area.
And Carl, you did say that the signal rebuilds on the corner is on the corners would be as the signals are rebuilt, they would have the pedestrian push buttons, correct?
Yes, so they all have pedestrian push buttons today, but as newer kind of ADA standards and things, the push buttons are inaudible, so those little ones that have kind of the chirping or vibration sound to them, those are accessible more to visually impaired and or hearing impaired. They have some tactile stuff, and so yes, all of those are upgrades that we make whenever we touch signals today.
Perfect, thank you. So next up is Becky Santiago. Becky, you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Thanks. And I guess to whoever just asked that last question, they just put in a hawk signal at Oak Street and 7th Street. So that's what Carl is talking about. My question was related to some of the transit improvements and if transit signal priority is going to be considered for the corridor.
You asked if transit
No priority, so like when the bus can signal that it's going to be the light and helps with the travel speed for transit.
I'll
go ahead. Yeah.
I'll answer that. This is Bruce Littleton. The technology is there. There is not that as part of this project. There won't be. That'll be something we would work with transit. But the physical equipment putting in will have the capability to do that. How that interacts with the buses has to be worked with public transit. So that is not part of this project. But the technology from a signal perspective will be available should that be something the public transit does in the future.
Thank you, Bruce. The next pre-submitted question is, from what sources and how much funding are you anticipating for this project? Keeney, can you update us where we are?
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, so everybody understands that the funding we sought for this portion of the project to do this phase of the project, we received about $100,000 from the Maricopa Association of Governments. They are the metropolitan planning organization in the Phoenix metropolitan area, and they have a program to be able to fund projects like this where we want to look at feasibility and look at what we can potentially do as an interim, like as an early step in the project planning process. So it gets us some numbers, it gets us some ideas of what we can do. So it's about $100,000 we received from them to do that. That's where we're working with a consultant to move forward with this. Right now, there's no city funds that are applied to the project. And that's why I mentioned before the design and construction funding is not identified yet, but that's part of what we would be doing through this pre-design effort, is to identify what the potential scope of this project would be, and the schedule and the cost. And so we can make further decisions going forward. So there are no private funds. It's just all funding coming from the Maricopa Association of Governments at this time.
Thank you, Keeney. Next, I'd like to call on Matt Krause. Matt, you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Thanks for taking my question. It seems like most of the things we're hearing are cosmetic, and the priority here is still to maintain this as a 6-lane corridor, which puts traffic first as opposed to pedestrians. Are you aware of any other street location where the objective is to increase foot traffic and localize businesses, bring people to the area that has 6 lanes, 3 lanes going each way anywhere in the city? Seems like our priorities are a little upside down here. Thank you.
I'd just weigh in on that. I think that we want to hear your feedback and your comments like that. It is a unique corridor, Mcdowell Road, because it does parallel I-10 and is seen as often as a reliever if there's any issues on I-10 to be able to handle that traffic in that kind of situation. But we also know there's also a historic nature to Mcdowell Road and what we're trying to get through this revitalization effort. So we're trying to work on how that works together. How do we handle vehicle traffic or the needs are there, but also making sure that we're making good, safe facilities for bicyclists and pedestrians. And at the same time, working on trying to do things to be able to encourage that redevelopment or that revitalization of the area that's already beginning right now. And so that's an effort that, that's why we're doing a study like this. We want to hear from you. We want to, with our consultant, look at those opportunities that we can address some of those needs that the community is saying, but also that we've identified already through the scope. And so that's why we want to go through this process, so we can figure out what the project looks like when we get done with this pre-design effort.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next pre-submitted question. Do plans include the possibility of increased tree planting and plants to reduce the amount of heat pedestrians walking and waiting for the bus experience? Increased seating capacity at bus stops with increased numbers of trash cans are desired. And after you answer that question, project team, I will unmute Artie.
Yes, so we're looking to implement shade trees everywhere we can in the project area. It's going to be a very high priority, especially near transit stops. And if somebody wants to go into more detail on my project team, they can. But basically, that's what we're focused on. We're focused on shade trees and
there may be, I'll just, I don't know, Brandy, I think we also have the opportunity to, because there's such tight constraints sometimes in those areas where we're trying to accommodate pedestrians in there, and sometimes we might not have the space to plant those trees. I think we're open to looking at both structured shade and natural shade as part of the project, because at the end of the day, we want to have a good pedestrian experience and through here, and we'll look at whatever options we need to be able to create that shaded environment.
I'm just going to take a break right here before I unmute Artie and remind people that we are recording this. We do have plans to post it to the project website. The chat and the Q&A has been very active, but we did have an option where people could pre-submit questions when they registered for the meeting. So that's where I'm getting the pre-submitted questions. But we do pledge to you all tonight, because we won't get to everyone. We will capture your questions, we'll capture the chat and the Q&A, and try and respond back to you individually. Artie Vahil, you're unmuted, please.
Thank you, Heather. So I'm a resident of Coronado neighborhood, and I'm very concerned that many of the changes discussed are still very superficial and don't really address the safety concerns or even enabling a vibrant retail or restaurant environment to allow businesses to succeed. So I guess my question is, because is there any good arterial in the city of Phoenix that you could point to, us residents can reference and say, this is, once these changes are made, this is what this street will look like, and it is a good example of achieving pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, and also is very vibrant for the retail and restaurants. Thank you.
I think I'd probably take that one and answer. And just, I think the idea here is that's the whole purpose of this pre-design effort, to look at what we can do in this area, and we will be looking at other projects as we go through this that are maybe in a similar nature. That's why we have a consultant team working with us to see what other similar projects can achieve safety improvements and get the other benefits we're looking with this project in a similar kind of a situation. So there's not one I can think of right now that we can point to, because that's the intent of us right now is starting this pre-design effort to be able to, like I said, work with our consultant team, listen to the public and listen to their concerns, and then figure out what project is feasible that can meet those needs and be successful in delivering the project we're talking about this evening.
Thank you. I'm just checking with the Spanish language line, and we do not have any questions yet, but I'll continue to chat with our host, Albert Granillo, and monitor that if we do end up getting questions. Next question is, how will public art or murals be chosen? Will there be a public call to artists, and when will the call to artists happen?
I'll just jump in there on that one. Usually when we're working with art elements or art structures or anything that art on our projects, that typically happens in the design phase, but it's not to say that we won't identify potential locations or opportunities for art that can be incorporated as part of the pre-design effort. But as far as doing a call for artists or getting further into what the art element actually looks like, or how we would operate, function, that's something that will happen typically in the design phase. So it is a little bit early for that, but I think the idea and the interest and the desire for having art as being part of a project like this, I think is something we want to hear from the public and the community, so we can make sure that that's something that we communicate to our consultant that we want to incorporate into the overall pre-design effort.
Thank you, Keeney. Next, I'd like to unmute Ed Drummond. Ed, you can go ahead, please.
Awesome. Thanks for taking my question. I appreciate it. I'm a merchant here on the mile, and without reducing the lanes, my concern is that I do think that trees and art would be fantastic for the neighborhood and beautifying it, but to make it more walkable, if we have this one opportunity to do a study like this and aren't considering a lane reduction or some sort of road diet, what's the next opportunity for that to happen? If we're considering multiple hawks on Mcdowell already, and the hawks maybe start slowing traffic down a little bit, what's the next ask that people in our community can go for to say, hey, now that we've done this first study, when can we ask for the next one when we want the road diet? What would that look like? Thank you.
I think just, and Becky's probably the easiest way to answer that is, we're going to collect all the community input, and we've already heard before the meeting that there's that desire for the lane reduction. We know that's not part of the study right now, but I think that's something we need to incorporate as far as listening to the public and figure out how this project works without a lane reduction. But I don't have the next step as far as, okay, how do we request for this lane reduction later? I think that we're looking at what we can do right now to make it a safety improvements to this corridor, make it more comfortable for biking and walking. And we're going to do our best within the scope of this project to be able to get there. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to hear the public's input on what they would like to see with the roadway, including what you're talking about, changing lane configurations.
Thank you. This question, I'm not sure we're quite the department to address it, but I'll toss it out there, and maybe Teeny, you'll take this one too. How are you going to bring in better businesses and more local social activity?
Okay, you're probably right. This is probably not the street transportation department question, but we work closely with our colleagues in Community Economic Development Department and our Planning and Development Department. And I also know that we have Councilmember Garcia, who represents Council District 8, on the line with us as well. Maybe I don't want to put him on the spot, but I know he is listening in. He's very interested in this project as well. So if Councilmember Garcia, I don't know if you can, Heather, unmute him, maybe he can help address that question.
Sure, we were going to invite him to make some closing remarks, but since he's on and engaged on this project, Councilman Garcia, you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'll leave the rest of my comments for later. I'm listening to you all. I think in that situation, you know, it's a little bit of a chicken and egg conversation about what comes first, right? Does the design come first or what gets there? I think our economic development office does a great job in pursuing or pushing for folks. I do think being able to have these conversations and having plans for what the area is going to look like is going to be helpful as our economic development folks make a pitch to bring those types of business that you're suggesting. So I'll have more comments on the rest that's been said, but I do think that it's always enticing to folks when they see that movement is happening and things are changing in an area, and this conversation is definitely leading us in that way.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Appreciate the comments. And that's why he's an elected official. He does a great job of handling questions like that. And he said exactly the right thing. So thank you, Councilmember Garcia. And we'll listen to your comments at the end too.
Okay, we are down to the final minutes here. So I'm going to just try and get rapid fire through as many speakers as we can. Next up is Slade Schaefer. If anybody doesn't have anything to say, just let me know and we'll move on. So Slade, you're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Awesome. I am a recent, couple of years ago, graduated from ASU with my degree in architecture, currently a designer. I live in Coronado now. I've heard a lot of very valid concerns here, especially without the reduction of lanes. My biggest concern here, having done my master's thesis on cycling infrastructure in Phoenix, is sort of some connectivity here with existing cycling infrastructure. I know there's, without a lane reduction, not really any opportunity to put anything along Mcdowell, but your nearest east-west corridor being Oak and then Roosevelt down beyond 10, you have those nice pedestrian bridges on, I think, is it 18th Street and 10th Street, but I think there's a lot of fragmented nature there, and the crossing of Mcdowell anywhere between 16th and 51 or the 7 is quite treacherous. So I'm just curious if there's any opportunities to sort of bridge that. You have a nice bike lane on 20th Street as well, but I saw a pretty horrific crash at Mcdowell in the 51 just about a week ago, and you know, crossing that road can be very scary on a bike. So I'm just curious if there's been any thought as to, in addition to the Hawk, how you could better tie in those bike lanes. Thank you.
So, hi there. Yeah, it's a good question. We are not conducting a lane reduction, and you're right. Without that, there wouldn't be room for a continuous bike lane on both sides of the road, which is what would be appropriate in this situation. If somebody on my team wants to speak further to that, they can. But I hope that if you have more questions, we can take your email and we can answer that. That was a loaded question. So we can definitely, Heather can take your question and we can reply to you as best as possible.
Okay, next I'd like to unmute Sarah Hebner, and after Sarah, I will go to Donna, if Donna Reiner is available.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, great. The two things that I want to touch upon are going to be related to cycling because I'm a cyclist living in the Coronado neighborhood. The first thing is it would be great if we could have more trash bins or recycling bins along Mcdowell, because in the past month I've encountered a lot of broken glass on the road that just stays there for a while, for sometimes, you know, over a week, maybe 2 weeks. And it's not just off of Mcdowell, but also in some of the internal streets as well, like some of the neighborhood streets. So it would be nice. I don't know if bins would help, you know, necessarily reduce the broken glass, but just anything as a sort of deterrent. And the second comment also kind of has to do with that, but specifically with the bike overpasses over the freeways. I've kind of experienced this both on the one by 10th Street and the one that goes over the 51, I think around 20th Street-ish. There are times when, you know, as a woman biking alone, maybe depending on the time of day, you know, I know that the unhoused people were addressed earlier, but specifically there are times where there's a lot of debris, also broken glass. It smells of body fluids when you pass through there, and it just becomes kind of an unpassable area that feels really unsafe. So I just, you know, I don't want to necessarily make it a question, but just a comment that it would be great if we could do things to make those areas feel safe as well, just because they're kind of isolated, especially the one over the 51 where you have to go up a ramp or just an incline, and you kind of isolate it up there. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to unmute Michael Kelly. Michael, you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much. I want to make it short. One of the things I'd like to see is perhaps a Barnes crossing at 16th and McDowell, where pedestrians can cross all at once without the fear of being run over. I know I've seen folks in wheelchairs almost get hit, and so what are we going to do for pedestrian safety at that intersection?
Team, I think he was talking about pedestrian scramble, where all the traffic.
No, it was clear what he was talking about. I'm familiar with the term the Barnes. We can certainly look at it as part of the project, as part of the signal rebuild, and whether we do that or restrict the left turns to protect it only, so that there is no conflict between the left turns and the pedestrians. But we can certainly look at it as part of the signal rebuild that will be part of the project.
Thank you very much. Next, I would like to unmute Dee Racely. I hope I pronounced that correctly. You are unmuted. Please go ahead. If Dee Racely is with us, you've been unmuted. Please go ahead. Okay. That person has been active in the chat, so maybe they just had to step away. I'll come back to them in a second. Next up is Dale Barr. Dale, you have been unmuted.
I just have a comment, not a question, similar to important that we have a road diet in our Central Phoenix corridor. So I think this is a larger issue beyond just McDowell. I'm tickled to death. I'm a 25-year resident in Midtown, and I'm so happy that we're finally doing this kind of work. But I think we do need to start addressing all the other arterials very similarly. I think we need to do road diets down to 2 lanes each direction and add trees and medians and bushes, similar to what Tempe has done and Mesa. That's all I have.
Okay, the individual I tried to call on has indicated that they have a microphone issue, but we'll make time to address those questions. The next up is Michael Beatty. Michael, you're unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate the interest in a road diet. I understand that it's not part of the current study, but as a supplement to that, I'd love to see a consideration for crossings for pedestrians that don't require them to step into the street, rather get to stay at level with the curb and have cars have to go over those bumps to indicate that it's a pedestrian-friendly area. That's all.
Thank you very much. Next up is Javier Verdugo, and after Javier, we'll go to John Fricks. Javier, you are ready to go? Javier?
Yes, hi. Hello, my name is Javier Verdugo, and I'm a homeowner and a business owner in this community. Thank you for this project. I'm here tonight to have a chance to express my concerns. They feel are important to address for true success of this project. Our neighborhood has seen an increase of illegal activity in the City of Phoenix public parking lot, located at 1521 East Mcdowell Road. Okay. Since I live behind Circle K, I've been a witness to illegal drug selling, while one dealer stays on the side of the parking lot, the buyer is on the other side in the alley to complete the deal. Because the wall is not even 6 feet high, it is frequently used to deal drugs. We ask the Phoenix Transportation Department, which manages this property, to raise the wall to 8 to 9 feet to help eliminate this growing major drug problem. Since this project is going to bring more people to our neighborhoods, it would be nice to have that done. My second concern, my second concern is the neighbors in my street that our kids can't even use the bus stop on the corner of 60th Street and Mcdowell in front of the Circle K. And I know this is an embarrassment to say, but this bus stop is being used for drug use, and people, the homeless, having sex right behind the bus stop. And you know how they host the billboards attached to the bench. I noticed that the city of Scottsdale is now putting up attractive umbrellas with a pole, which means there is no room to hide and no advertisement. The monetary gains by these billboards on the bench stops is not worth it. The injustice for those who need bus transportation, it is unfair for the people who really need the bus to stand in the blazing sun. Thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to seeing great things happen.
Thank you, Javier. Next up is John Fricks. John, you are unmuted. Please go ahead, and after John, we'll have Andy Kemp.
How did I sound? I'm muted already.
John? Let's try this again. John Fricks, are you there? Okay, let's go to Andy Kemp.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. So I'll just reiterate what a lot of people have been saying about the road diet. It especially seems strange that the traffic goes 3 lanes in one direction and 2 in the other. It seems like you could at least go 2-2. And then the other quick comment I have is that the lights seem to work better than the hawk. For example, there was a hawk at 7th Street and Oak, but it's been changed to a real traffic light, and I feel a lot safer crossing on a bike. And it seems like 14th Street would be another ideal location in addition to 18th Street on McDowell. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a moment, Andy. I've got to find you on this long list of participants. And please go ahead.
You guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I don't really have much to say. Sorry about that.
Okay. Next, I have to search for a couple of people further down the line here. Okay, I don't see that person. Don't see that person. Literally, I'm scrolling through a bunch of you folks who registered, and I'm so grateful that you spent some time with us today. Next up is Tessa Martinez. Tessa?
Hi, I'm a homeowner and I also in the Coronado neighborhood, and I also frequent the businesses along Mcdowell. And I would just also like to echo that I would love to have, I think what you guys referred to as a hawk at either 14th or 15th. There's just a lot of, crossing, and especially during summer when it's so hot, you don't want to walk all the way to 16th. That's a big deal. I also was wondering, or would like to throw in the idea to consider some cool concrete like sealant for that road. I believe it's being used in some other areas of downtown Phoenix, and I just think that would really help with the walkability of the area. And that's it. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Next up, I'd like to unmute Mcdowell Hassan. Hopefully I didn't hear that name.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
My name is Mcdowell Hassan, and I'm the owner in the business of Authentic Ethiopia restaurant. Really, we're hoping that this day comes. That's why we have been investing the last 10-15 years on the street. As you know, most immigrants, especially from Horn of Africa, our restaurants or stores are located on this corridor. So there's really investing on this street the last 10 years, and we want really have a viable plan so we attract more, since we are close to airport and also a central location. And if there any on the concept you are planning, if there is anything you can think of or consider representing or including on the art concept, and building that community to incorporate our heritage, or probably not naming a street, but at least considering that part of Africa, and our contribution on that street to reflect on this concept. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your contributions and for hosting your business on the Mcdowell Miracle Mile. We are at a little bit after 7. I want to give Councilman Garcia an opportunity, and once again assure each of you that we are taking your comments, your chat, your Q&A, your considerations very seriously, and the project team will be studying that, and we will work out a strategy amongst ourselves to respond back to those people who submitted questions that weren't answered in the meeting today. Again, we do plan to post the recording of this meeting within 72 hours of the end of the meeting. And Councilman Garcia, may I unmute you and ask you to make your closing remarks, please? You're unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. Please go ahead.
Well, okay. Well, thank you, Heather, Brandy, Carl, Heaney, and the rest of the street teams for hosting the meeting tonight, and obviously all the residents that have spoken. There's some exciting projects coming. The governor was alluded to earlier, the 5-story project that's coming. And with that, I think our city's definitely growing, and density near downtown like this area is happening. And we also all know that this city was originally planned with the mindset of having cars as a priority. So as things shift and planning is also shifting with it, we need to adapt as well. We also had a very similar conversation, and I heard road diet a lot today, and lane reduction and that conversation. We had an experience with Van Buren that I think we need to learn from. and make sure that we are all on the same page when we go into that conversation. So I know that's not the conversation that was set for today, but I just want to let everybody know that we're hearing it and we welcome that conversation to continue. There was some conversation about homelessness and unsheltered. It's something that's happening throughout the city, but definitely in this area. The area is growing, and also, unfortunately, is one of the areas that the prices of both homes and rent has skyrocketed. And so we are also seeing a growing population of people losing their homes. A lot of questions were raised around pedestrian safety. Just want to let you all know we did pass a plan over the last couple of weeks, the Vision Zero plan, that allows us different tools to be able to address specifics. Like you all mentioned, 16th Street and Mcdowell, we've heard issues in the area. And so we hope to be able to design a plan to better the area. Heard some questions around the heat. We opened up an office this last year, the Office of Heat and Mitigation, one of the only offices in the country that I think we can ask for support and to work alongside this project. I'd love to hear heard the cool pavement comment. I think that's definitely one of the tools that we can use along with, various other tools that we're using in other places. The arts questions, thank you. Please keep recommending, please keep suggesting this. I think especially in a cultural corridor, which I consider this, it is very important to remember, things that have passed there, but also to make sure that as we're creating infrastructure, we also make it nice and make it to where this place is a destination. Just concluding, I want to thank everyone for joining tonight. As the team has said, this is the first of many discussions. Please know that safety for all, including cyclists and pedestrians, is a priority for our office. You made many comments that touch on other city departments. I think in future conversations, it might make sense to have some of those folks included in the call. I will be following up with the departments and make sure that they're hearing these comments as well. And we hope you all continue to get engaged and reach out to our office if we can be of any service. I know, Javier, we owe you a call. We talked to you about the situation with the bus stop. We've had some conversations internally, and we'll be reaching back out to make sure that we address those issues. And again, thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Councilman. On behalf of the street transportation team, I again thank all of you for part of your evening with us. When this meeting ends, there will be an option to click to the project page to advance to the link. And that is safe for you to click, and that is where you will find our survey in English and Spanish, and in about 72 hours, the recording of this meeting. So thank you very much. We will be back with you after the first of the year for the next phase of this project to basically distill down what you've shared with us through this effort as well as the survey. Thanks again. Have a good evening and be safe out there.